Welcome back. Food waste is a significant contributor to greenhouse gas emissions, with roughly one-third of all food produced for human consumption lost or wasted annually. In South Africa, this waste is estimated at around 10.3 million tons per year, equivalent to 67 billion rand in input costs alone. To help us unpack the state of our food system, let's bring in Lindsay Hopkins, who is the SA Harvest Sustainability Manager. Lindsay, thank you so much for making time for us on Newsfeed PM this afternoon. What is the state of our food system today? How do you characterize it? Lindsay, I'm not sure if you can hear us. I was thanking you for being part of this conversation. I wanted to know from you, what do you think is the state of our food system today?
South Africa, we're in such a good position. We've got an incredible climate. We have lots of land. We have lots of people prepared to do the work. Unfortunately, though, because of the way we've kind of abused our resources, the state of the food system, we're in pretty bad trouble, purely because of our water and energy usage and the state of our soil. So while we're in a beautiful, healthy environment, we have abused the system, and we're not in the best state of health. So we need a very quick change before there's no turning back.
Yeah, and we'll talk about those changes that are needed. But do you think we've begun seeing a shift in our food habits and consumption patterns?
Sorry, did you say, have we seen a shift?
Yeah, are we seeing a shift?
We are. People are becoming more aware of what they're eating, and we've got this new word that's called organic that's out there. I think at the same time, though, the word organic seems to be abused, and you can bring into the term the greenwashing. I think rather than people, and because there's a high price on organic and we all can't afford it, I think people need to just become more aware of responsible farming and responsible eating habits. And I think there is this turn back to using local markets and local fresh produce, rather than, unfortunately, using the high street retailers, because often that food is traveled such a distance to get there, and by the time it's got there, you often have to wonder what they've added to it to make it prolong its shelf life. So people are starting to ask questions, which is good.
Yeah, that's good. And if we start building up on that, we see more people who are more responsible and are conscious about the kind of food that they consume, the kind of food that they purchase. If we see that shift, what effect can we start seeing on the ecological footprint?
Yeah, it's something, there's a term called regenerative farming. So it all starts from the soil. So at the moment, we've been throwing chemical fertilizers. I'm very sorry, please, it's a no, no, no. It's just what we've been brainwashed to use, is chemical fertilizers. So we're throwing chemicals into the ground and expecting these big, beautiful plants to come, or fruit and vegetables. So if we just take a look and consider what's inside the soil, and create a nice, healthy, stable environment in the soil, we're going to produce the most magnificent fresh produce. And then we're not going to have additives on top, and sauces and salts and peppers and everything. You won't believe how good and healthy something can actually taste. And that's why we learned to love it in the first place. So I just think that people need to start asking questions and just be a little bit more aware, not just believe everything that you with all due respect to, say, a platform such as TikTok, which is a lot of fun, you don't believe everything you see in there. So don't believe everything that you see in headlines, because you don't know where the article, the sources come from. So I think people just need to start, knowledge is power, and people need to just start asking questions and engage more.
Okay, so, and apart from asking the questions and engaging more, what do you think we can do as individuals to make a difference?
It does start with the individuals. It's the same as this whole plastic pollution conversation. It's the industry's problem, and it's everybody producing plastic. Well, no, hang on, because you're a consumer of plastic. And it's the same with food. We need to make healthier, better decisions. Every time you go to the shops, whatever you're picking up, have a look. Start reading up about where it's come from, if it's local. Don't go to a shop demanding to have avos or strawberries, because they're seasonal. So at one time of the year they'll be 20 rand, the next time they'll be 80 rand. And rather than putting the demand on the retailer saying, well, I want my strawberries or I want my avos, or I know those are different, very unique examples, but we need to start thinking seasonal, and then we'll get fresh food, and it'll become cheaper because we're not forced to travel it in from a very far distance. So it all starts with individual habits and our selection. And the other big thing is waste as well. People tend to waste food. Rather just see how you can use the whole food item and reuse the skins or reuse the seeds or plant them. You know, there's more ways to use our food. Beetroot. People often chop those stalks off. The beetroot leaves are beautiful. They're almost better tasting than spinach.
Uh-huh. So we mentioned in the intro about how food waste is a significant contributor to greenhouse gas emissions, with roughly 1/3 of all food produced for human consumption lost or wasted annually. And just in South Africa, this waste is estimated at around 10.3 million tons per year. That's equivalent to 67 billion rand input costs alone. I mean, these are staggering figures, and yet about 20 million people suffer from hunger daily in our country.
Yeah. It's a very, very sad statistic. So if you've got over 10, 15 million tons of food going to landfill and you've got 20 million people going to bed every night, if you break down what a ton of food waste means, converting it into maybe like a 300 grand serving, and do your sum, nobody should go to bed hungry at night. And what makes it worse is that we call as food waste, like it's food that's been wasted, it's at the end of the line. There's also so many inefficiencies and ineffectiveness during the process line. So at agricultural level, between 30 and 60% of our fruit and veg is left on the farms. And that might be because they're not the brightest red or the brightest green, or the cucumbers are not long and straight. So they don't get thrown back in. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with this. And also the other effect that organic matter has lying in the environment is it releases a methane gas, which is far more potent than carbon dioxide, almost 20 to 30% more. And that's very harmful to the environment. So if we can take it back out of the environment and not let it rot in the environment, and rather give it a churning process and ferment it, we create the most magnificent soil. I mean, the compost, it can go back into the soil.
Uh-huh. Let's talk about online shopping a little bit, because that's something that's becoming, more popular. Many people will say, well, it's convenient, that's why we do it. But do you think there's more regard and consideration to its environmental costs?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a fun argument to have, because yes, maybe there's having one scooter driving around, dropping off multiple, rather than all of us going to the shops flooding in. There is that argument. Storage cost then, becomes cheaper because it's stored bulk. But we are taking away from that original interpersonal experience and making better decisions. When you're online, it's so easy to hit click and then buy. Whereas if you go into the shop, you suddenly go, do I really need this? So we're becoming like obsessive and compulsive, and we're just buying things without necessarily needing it. So I think that there's a lot of waste. And then obviously the packaging waste that comes with that order, you're paying for it. So when you go and order something off the online shops and you come with the cardboard and the packaging and all the fancy plastic, you're paying for. So rather go to the shop, spend a little bit more, get a little bit better quality, and do it the way we kind of, supposed to. I just think there's a lot of excessive and wastage, and it becomes compulsive when you shop online.
Yeah. I want to talk about buying local now. Our government, I think we've had the Buy Local Summit. In South Africa. Government often encourages its departments, they're encouraging us as South Africans to buy local as well. What difference can buy local make?
Oh, well, first of all, we know that for like the culture and the engagement would be such an amazing skill that we could relearn and learn to love our neighbors and stuff, which is exactly what needs to happen. But when you're buying from your local farmers, then you tend to have a local network, which we can have the argument about reducing the green miles. And green miles is the distance the food takes from the farm to the fork. Here in Durban, where I live, a lot of the retail shops, our fruit and vegetables is being driven down from Gauteng. It is completely unnecessary when we've got such a lovely coastline here in KZN. So I think the government needs to really take a stronger stand and put down some very strict guidelines that like retailers should also be forced to shop locally with their farmers. The emerging farmers, it's so important for them, and there is so much opportunity and potential, but our emerging farmers need that support. Whether it's just a JoJo tank for some extra water, because their water systems are not working well, and secondly is simple access roads. Some don't even have access roads, and then just access to markets. That's the only thing. They don't want funding to plant because, it's a natural action. It's just the fact that they need support to get to market. And the stories that are out there, I mean, these are youngsters right through to elderly folk that have got the most incredible knowledge and traditions that we are soon going to lose. I just think we need to go back to that because we are very unique here in South Africa, and we've got some magnificent, colourful culture and people that I think we're silly to be missing out on it.
Yeah, and when you're buying local, you're not just supporting the local economy, but when we talk about responsible, purchasing and producing, products, you're also reducing the carbon footprint that's associated with the long-distance food transport that you've already spoken about. So it's a win-win situation. Just lastly then,
Absolutely.
Lindsay, the need for education around what we are talking about, because the journey towards a sustainable food system starts with understanding our role, right, even as individuals, and our power in shaping it. What more do you think can be done to teach South Africans about that responsibility?
We all know that does start at school level, and I think far more needs to go into the education section. And I don't necessarily mean that the teachers need to take on more, because the teachers are absolutely swamped at the moment. But we've got a subject in schools, some schools called PSWB. It's personal social well-being, and it's exactly that's where it comes in. The kids are encouraged to go and do cleanups and do community work. Education does start from there, because then it gets back to the parents. Parents and adults also need to be prepared to be unschooled and re-educated. We need to start a revolution. Where we've come up until now isn't working for us. It's not working. Maybe the first world countries want to do it. We here in Africa are going to do it in another way, and I think we really need to reconsider the way that we are producing food and buying food and stuff, and just go back to our roots. We really have a beautiful temperate climate. We've got all the fertile land. We've got all the people. And I think we just need to be open to relearning and just creating a revolution in the way that we do things. That might sound a little bit airy-fairy. But the time is now. We've been through a tough few years. And I think people really need to, we've seen so much happen on the ground through COVID and through our floods and riots and fires. It's amazing people coming together. And I think it starts with us as individuals. And I think we need to pull together and start asking questions and taking some responsibility for the way we live and behave.
Yeah. Well, Lindsay Hopkins, thank you for making time for us this afternoon. SA Harvest Sustainability Manager. I appreciate your time.